welcome everybody. So today we are here for the webinar Funding 101 Red Rover Safe Housing Grants with the wonderful Rachel Stevens. My name is Danielle and I am also from Red Rover, but I do a lot of work for our Don't Forget the Pets project because of course this is a Don't Forget the Pets presentation series. Just a couple of things right at the top. So as you're joining us, I know more people are joining every minute, but as you're joining, if you could do just a couple of things for me to make taking attendance a lot easier. If you could please make sure that your display name on Zoom matches or closely matches the name that you registered for today's workshop with. That will just make it a lot easier for me to mark you as attended and make sure that you get sent these slides because only attendees get sent the slide deck after the presentation. So if you'd like to have these slides to review later, please make sure that your name matches the name you registered with so that you are marked as attended. If you did not register for today's webinar, that's totally fine. Maybe a colleague or a friend sent you the link. We're so excited to have you. Just do me a favor and send me a private message in the chat with your first and last name and your email address. And once again, that will help me mark you as attended so you can get that link to the slides to have for later. As far as questions for today, we're super excited to chat with you all and answer any questions that you have. We typically have a lot of questions at these presentations regarding our safe housing grants. We're going to go ahead and save questions until the end. However, you are welcome to drop questions into the chat as the presentation goes. Myself and my colleague Tia will be monitoring the chat throughout. So if we can answer your question, we will do that. Otherwise, we will make sure that any questions that are entered in the chat are read out to Rachel and answered at the Q&A at the end of today's webinar. So I know more people are still joining us, but I think we should go ahead and get started. It's 3 minutes past the hour. I'm so excited to be able to introduce Rachel Stevens, Director of Programs for Red Rover. She is back with us today after being on maternity leave for a while. We're so excited to have her with us again. And she is going to share all about Red Rover Safe Housing Grants today. So thank you so much for being with us, Rachel, and please take it away.
Thank you so much, Danielle. So happy to be back and so happy to have all of you here to learn about our safe housing grants. Danielle, did you want to call out this Facebook for DFTP?
Sure. Yeah. If you guys are not already, please consider following Don't Forget the Pets on Facebook or Instagram. That really is the first place that you will learn about guest presentations like this one. And we have a lot more presentations coming up this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name again is Rachel Stevens. I am Director of Programs here at Red Rover, and I oversee our domestic violence grants. So just to recap, like Danielle said, feel free to pop your questions in the chat, and we would love to address those towards the end of the presentation. I'll start off with just a little background about Red Rover. We are a national nonprofit based in Sacramento, California, and we were founded back in 1987. We started out as United Animal Nations, and initially we had more of an international focus on animal welfare. But over the years, we've evolved to focus in the US and Canada, as that's where we found that we can have the greatest impact. And then in 2011 is when we rebranded to Red Rover. And now we've just been working hard ever since then to expand our programs and bring animals from crisis to care and strengthen the bond between people and pets. And we do that through our 3 main programs that I'll just briefly do an overview of. We have our Red Rover Readers program, where we help children build empathy for animals and people, which helps prevent animal cruelty and neglect. And under that program is included is Kind News, which is an animal-themed children's magazine for classrooms and homes. And this children's magazine inspires kids to be curious, helpful, and kind to people and pets. Our second program is our RedRover Responders, and that is our volunteer program. So we provide temporary emergency sheltering for animals in situations such as natural disasters or large-scale cruelty situations like puppy mills. And our volunteers throughout the years have responded to Hurricane Katrina, the Camp Fire, lots of major disasters throughout the United States and Canada. We also, of course, our volunteers are involved in helping to build some of the pet-friendly spaces at our domestic violence shelter grant recipients. And we've also expanded the volunteer work to include community program work, such as unchaining programs and vaccine clinics as well. We have actually deployed our volunteers more than 200 times since this program was initiated, and we have over 4,000 volunteers throughout the US and Canada, which they are just incredible, and we are so lucky to have them. And then we have our third program, which is, of course, why we're all here today. It's our RedRover Relief Program. Through this program, we also offer financial and emotional support for pet owners who are in need of emergency veterinary care. But then, of course, we also offer assistance to help domestic violence survivors find safety with their pets. So we'll be diving into that more today. We offer multiple resources to help survivors of domestic violence. We have our Safe Escape grants as well as our Safe Housing grants, and these help to cover the cost of keeping pets safe and able to find safety with their families. You also already know about don'tforgetthepets.org, which is a collaboration with Greater Good Charities Rescue Rebuild program. And that offers free guidance, expertise, one-on-one coaching, and resources to organizations looking to create a pet program of their own. This is just a little bit of background on why RedRover has become so passionate about offering assistance to domestic violence survivors and their pets. We've seen that up to 71% of pet-owning women entering shelter have reported animal abuse, and between 20 to 48% of survivors report delaying leaving for fear of leaving their pet behind with their abuser. Also, about 25% of survivors reported that they have returned to their abuser out of concern for their pet. And since up to 70% of domestic violence survivors report having a pet, we can see from these numbers that the majority of homes where pets are present see those pets being abused. As a result, we've all encountered, calls and stories hearing that survivors live in their cars with their pets rather than leave them behind. So that's why, these programs are so critical to us. Heartbreakingly, these numbers also show that when children witness abuse, they are more likely to abuse. Being able to help parents and the greater community model caring behavior for pets seems especially crucial in these situations. We launched our Safe Escape grants back in 2007. These grants provide funding for boarding pets while a client is staying at a DV shelter that does not accept pets. So after a few years, outreach and word of mouth did a great job, and applications have been steadily coming in for over a decade now. Last year, we received a record number of nearly 300 applications. We provided nearly 14,000 safe nights of boarding for over 300 pets. And we're seeing an overwhelming number this year. And the applications just continue to increase. And so after doing this work, we came to realize that while these grants are extremely needed and very useful, they're not addressing the underlying issue of making it safe and easy for survivors to find safety with their pets. And that is when we decided to help DV shelters create their own pet housing programs. Enter our safe housing grants, which is the reason that we are all here today. These grants were started because we saw, of course, that the need for our Safe Escape grants were steadily increasing, but being the only national resource for this kind of help, we could see that this program would become overwhelming and unsustainable without help from some of the domestic violence organizations themselves. Our first safe housing grants were back in 2012, and they were pretty small. They were up to $2,000. These were mostly geared towards helping DV shelters purchase crates and other supplies to quickly and easily make safe spaces in their shelter for pets. In 2014, we increased the grant amount to $6,000, and we started seeing shelters building more permanent spaces, so outdoor kennel spaces, changing up the flooring in the rooms to become pet friendly and easy to clean, along with, of course, having those crates available for small animals or just brief overnight care. In 2016, we saw the first collaboration between Red Rover and Greater Good Charities Rescue Rebuild program, where we provided our volunteers to help make the domestic violence shelter pet friendly. Rescue Rebuild provided their expertise and know-how. We provided the volunteers and the manual labor to get the work done quickly. And this collaboration really helped us to see the growth potential for our safe housing program. Then back in 2017, a generous donor made it possible for us to increase the grants up to $20,000, which really expanded the kinds of projects that our grant could help with. We saw the number of room renovations greatly increase. We started seeing plans for indoor-outdoor kennel buildings instead of mainly, fenced structures that we'd helped with previously. We saw projects to elevate the standard of care for pets. So along with pet-friendly rooms, shelters were now adding play areas outside, cattery rooms where cats could get out to play. And these more ambitious projects also allowed more opportunities for collaboration with Rescue Rebuild and more deployment opportunities for our volunteers. Then in 2019, we were so fortunate to start a partnership with Purina, which is now called the Purple Leash Project. This partnership has afforded us the opportunity to not only continue to grow the safe housing grants, but greatly expand the reach of our message. Because of Purina and the Purple Leash Project, now more people than ever across the country are aware of the connection between pets and domestic violence. They're aware of the lack of pet-friendly spaces at DV shelters and the importance of keeping survivors and their pets together. This increased awareness has brought increased interest in our grant, also from animal organizations wanting to see what they could do to help. And since we were working with Rescue Rebuild, their main focus actually was helping animal organizations. And so we started to see that limiting our grants to only DV shelters was actually limiting the amount of help available to DV survivors and their pets. Some DV shelters simply aren't able to offer a pet program, and that could be for a variety of reasons, lack of buy-in from decision makers, all of the things. And so having another organization in the community set up to offer safe and confidential pet care is a great alternative in these situations. And we've seen that animal organizations are very interested in helping. So we decided to open up our grant to animal organizations in 2020, and the response has been incredible. We've awarded since opening up to animal orgs, about a third of the grants have been awarded to them, which is great. Because one of the best things about animal orgs offering DV pet assistance is that they can offer that help to the whole community rather than only the survivors at one specific shelter. So, as you've seen with that big overview, our safe housing grants have changed quite a bit since they were first offered in 2012. Our grants currently are up to $60,000, and we have 3 deadlines per year. So you can apply March 1st, June 1st, or September 1st. And we've designed these grants with flexibility in mind so that every pet program is designed to best meet the needs of that specific community. And here is a testimonial. Do not be tempted to view this project as just something else on your to-do list. It is important and may make all the difference in a victim's decision to leave or stay. This is a testimonial from a safe housing grant recipient, and it really illustrates the importance of creating a pet program. These programs truly eliminate barriers to safety. They keep people and their pets safe from abuse, and they facilitate healing. We've heard from multiple safe housing grant recipients heartbreaking stories of clients who were in shelter with their pets, who do not believe that they would be alive today if the shelter had not accepted them with their pets. They would not have left the dangerous situation they were in, and they truly credit the pet housing programs with saving their lives. And now we will dive deeper into our safe housing grants. You'll see on our website at redrover.org/safe housing, you'll find our pre-application checklist. So, in addition to helping people and pets find safety together, these grants are really meant to build collaborative relationships within your community. So, we do expect DV and animal orgs to work together to identify the needs for their services in the community and find the best ways to fill them. So if veterinary services can't be provided by your animal organization partner, a partnership with one or more veterinary clinics is recommended. We also recommend reaching out to community organizations such as Girl Scouts, local pet supply stores, places of worship to see if they're able to fill any of your program needs through community service or donations. So we require you to be ready to start your pet program within 12 months or less of applying. You must have a detailed program plan and budget, along with an MOU with a partner organization. So as I mentioned, DV orgs are forming partnerships with at least one animal organization, and same vice versa. Animal organizations must form a partnership with at least one DV organization. You'll need to, as I mentioned, identify a veterinary partner if this can't be provided to you by your animal org partner. You will, of course, need to ensure that the program meets all relevant animal ordinances and laws. You'll need to verify that you have the ability to obtain any permits that are needed and any other authorizations. We do require that you have already spoken with a contractor if necessary and already have detailed estimates and quotes for any of your renovations. And then just a couple notes, which I'll touch on more later too, about what safe housing grants cannot help with. And that would be things like salaries, advertising costs, training costs, and real estate purchases or any rent costs. Those are things that our grant is not able to cover. Also, our grants are not meant to sustain existing programs. So if you have an existing pet program, you're welcome to apply if you are expanding your capacity for pets. So needing to renovate to create additional spaces for pets. And there are a few required documents that you will need to attach to your application. These are your project budget, and we do have a template that you're able to use, which I will show later on in this presentation. Your project timeline, your IRS letter of determination, and an MOU with your partner organization signed by both parties. as well as a veterinary estimate if you are asking for veterinary funds. And then, of course, any quotes or estimates supporting your budget asks. And now I'd be happy to go over a couple example documents of an MOU and a budget. So here is a fantastic MOU that I'll show in more detail on the next slide. That's between a DV shelter and an animal organization. And this shelter was kind enough to allow us to use it as an example. And let me dive into the details. So this MOU clearly details each organization's duties and responsibilities. It specifies which services will be provided at no charge and which may require funding. And in this case, the animal org is agreeing to house pets that the DV shelter cannot house on site for whatever reason. And it clearly outlines that the care that will be provided at no cost. It also says that veterinary care or vaccines may require funding or reimbursement. And it specifies if the survivor can visit their pet, if the pet is staying at this animal organization, and what documentation and forms would be needed. So in this case, they are requiring a consent and release form. It also addresses confidentiality concerns and is signed by both organizations. So for more sample documents like MOUs, intake forms, consent and release forms, I definitely encourage you to check out, don't forget the pets.org resource library, and we will be sure to share that link with you in the chat. And now here is an example of a pretty simple pet program budget using our handy dandy RedRover budget template. So it may sound silly, but one of the main things to do is just double check that your math adds up. And if you do use our template, it usually does the math for you, which is very nice. Double check that the total amount you're requesting in your budget that's attached to your application reflects the same amount requested in your application. In this sample budget, you can see it's clear what each cost is for. It also details the cost per pet when appropriate, such as, for example, the vaccines, $100 a pet, they anticipate 10 pets. It also clearly shows which items are already covered with other funding and which they are requesting RedRover funding for. And then, as I mentioned, in addition to the budget, we do ask that you supply quotes and estimates that reflect these budget asks. And you're welcome to attach those with your application, or during the process, we will be asking you for those quotes. So what can you include in your budget? Some of the items that we typically see are renovation costs and supplies for both indoor and outdoor projects. Veterinary care costs, so that's vaccines, basic wellness, things like that. And then also potentially an emergency veterinary fund in case something comes up with pets that you see. We also get requests for pet supplies, of course, and food, and then even things like pet deposits. So that's something to consider too, for survivors who are moving on from your shelter with their pet. They may need help with those pet deposits, and we'd be happy to include those in our grant budget. As I mentioned earlier, things not to include in your budget: salaries, advertising, training, real estate purchases, rent, utilities. And then, of course, as I mentioned, our grants aren't for sustaining existing program costs, but if you are expanding your capacity for pets, we welcome your application. While we are reviewing applications, we are really looking for shelters to demonstrate the need in their community and tell us how they determined their estimated number of pets that they're going to serve. So, have you done a survey? Did you track calls to your hotline that mentioned pets? Are you tracking the number of people and pets that you've unfortunately had to turn away due to lack of a pet program? These are things that we're looking for in the application. So if you haven't started tracking, I would highly recommend tracking that so that you can get a great estimate of the number of pets that your organization could serve. And definitely tell us all of these things in your application. Now, if you're an animal organization that will house pets from other crisis situations in addition to DV, which is fantastic, and it's such a great benefit to animal orgs doing this work. For our grant, make sure that you're focusing on the DV portion of your pet program in your application. Again, we're just so thrilled that animal orgs can house pets from all kinds of crisis situations. But for our grant purposes, just make sure you're outlining like what percentage of your numbers will be DV pets. And then a little reminder of why we're all here today. This is a quote from one of our Safe Housing grant recipients. So the people heal the pets and the pets heal the people. It is worth any extra work on the end of the shelter. And then a little overview about our safe housing grants and the impact. We have provided over the years more than $4.9 million to domestic violence shelters and animal organizations. And we help nearly 5,000 pets annually and over 4,000 survivors and their families annually. And that number, of course, continues to grow with every shelter that becomes pet friendly. And we provide around 160,000 nights of safety for pets each year through all of the amazing shelters that are housing these pets and their survivors. So as you can see, our safe housing grants have certainly had an impact over the years, but that was not enough. We decided to set a new goal for ourselves. So in partnership with Purina, we have set a goal of seeing 25% of domestic violence shelters become pet friendly by 2025. So this is definitely an ambitious goal. I started working at RedRover over 10 years ago, and only 3% of DV shelters across the US were pet friendly. 3%. Now, about 19% of shelters across the US are able to accept survivors with their pets. And of course, we're working to ensure that this number continues to increase. We are so excited and really hopeful to get to 25% by the end of 2025. And we really hope that you will join us in being part of the first 25%. I also wanted to share a few resources that we have available on our website. We have posters available that are mainly geared towards survivor outreach. These can be hung in public places such as a veterinary office, a doctor's office, a public restroom. They talk about the signs of abuse and they help survivors find pet-friendly DV shelters near them, and also gives the National DV hotline information. And all of these wonderful resources are available for download at redrover.org/dvhelp. And of course, if you'd like to learn more, if you have specific questions, you're welcome to contact us. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I've included my email. I've included our relief grants email. So myself or someone on the team would be happy to get back to you and answer any questions you have. If you're not comfortable sharing now or in the chat, feel free to reach out. And I greatly appreciate everyone for attending today and learning more about our safe housing grants. I hope it provided a little more insight into the application process, the application itself, and of course the background on RedRover. And now I will kick it back to Danielle. But first, I'll just say that I hope to see your application at a future deadline. Danielle?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. That was fantastic as always. We're gonna briefly talk about some upcoming additional opportunities through Don't Forget the Pets, and then we will start our Q&A session with Rachel. Rachel, we do have a lot of great questions already in the chat that I am excited to read to you. And then we'll have an opportunity for anybody that wants to unmute, would prefer to just ask their question verbally rather than in the chat. You're welcome to do that as well. Rachel, do you want to hop forward a slide or two? Thank you so much. So we have several upcoming events through Don't Forget the Pets. You can see our 2 in-person workshops that will close out 2024. Santa Rosa, California on September 26th and Tallahassee, Florida on October 29th. So if you are near either of those areas, we definitely hope that you're able to join us. And additional webinars like this one, we will have Working Together, Animal Shelters and Domestic Violence Services on September 17th, and Mind the Housing Gap with Michelson Found Animals Foundation on October 10th. So you can view all of our upcoming events and register online at don'tforgetthepets.org/events. All right, now let's dive into some of the questions that we have in the chat. Let's go ahead and start with Ashley, who asked a great question and a very common question. Do programs need to be new in order to be considered for funding? We are a domestic violence shelter working with the Humane Society for the last 2 years and accepting pets in our shelter. However, we have never received any funding to help and are very much in need of it. Rachel?
Well, amazing that you're already accepting pets. That's fantastic news. We are able to help if you are expanding your capacity for pets. So if you have the ability to create additional space for more pets, you are welcome to apply. However, our grants really aren't meant to sustain existing program costs. So if you're expanding, please feel free to apply.
So I guess what I should expand on in that is that neither the Humane Society nor us, like, we accept them into shelter, but we don't have the funding for vaccines or flea treatment or anything like that. We're not able to provide that to the survivors, and we would very much like to be able to do that. But we don't have the funding, and that's what we're looking for, is to be able to help those people with the pets, not only just provide them the space. So
Yeah, got it. Absolutely. You are welcome to apply. What I will say is, right now, as I mentioned, our goal of 25% by 2025. To be honest, that is where our priority funding goes. So that means new on-site programs at DV shelters do get priority funding. For shelters that are already accepting pets but need to expand capacity or, kind of quality of life, elevate the, pet services that they're offering. Those we consider if there is room in the budget. We are limited, of course, by our budget, and we do have to prioritize our goal of 25 by 2025. So does that kind of answer your question, Ashley? Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. And a similar question from Christy. We need to renovate our outside area. It wouldn't necessarily add more pets, but it would update space for pets and human owners to safely enjoy outside play areas. Rachel, I'm guessing your answer is going to be very similar to this question, but go ahead.
Yes, definitely exact same answer. That's fantastic that you're trying to elevate those services. We completely understand having that outdoor pet space is so crucial. And as I mentioned to Ashley, we just have to prioritize in order with our budget. So similar answer, you're welcome to apply. We just can't guarantee that we would have the funds available.
Thank you so much. Next question from Betsy. Do safe housing grants help cover the cost of pet licenses through the county? Is that something that they could apply for funding for?
That's a good question. I don't think we have ever seen that. You're welcome to include that in your budget ask, and then we will work with you through the safe housing process to see if that's something that we can fund.
Thanks, Rachel. I did see a hand up a moment ago, but it went down. Did anybody have a question that they wanted to read out? I'll wait just a moment. Sometimes we accidentally click on buttons too, and that's okay. All right, I'm going to move on to Victoria's question. Victoria, your question might be better for our Don't Forget the Pets program, but I'd love to hear Rachel's opinion as well. Victoria would like to know how to transition facilities that are already taking service animals or only taking service animals to being more inclusive of other types of animals. Rachel, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I love that question. That is fantastic that you are thinking about that and open to that. I agree with Danielle. I really think you could benefit from the Don't Forget the Pets workshop because Bryn and Katie just have such fantastic knowledge and expertise and ideas. And if you are thinking, oh my gosh, we don't have the space in our shelter, how are we going to do this? Bryn will find the space. Bryn is amazing at finding the space. So I think Don't Forget the Pets is going to be the best path forward for you because there are tons of ideas through that resource.
Thanks, Rachel. And yeah, Victoria, you and your team actually hosted one of our workshops earlier this year. So we're so excited to see you here today. I would remind you, don't forget about the Don't Forget the Pets coaching program. So if there are any shelters in your area that are just, maybe they do accept service animals, or maybe they even accept ESAs, and they're just, you're getting a little bit of a hint that they might be interested in expanding those services to include pets. Remember that our coaching program through Don't Forget the Pets is 100% free. And we really can walk through what that process would look like because it will be different for every shelter, how they can sort of be more inclusive, where they can expand, and what would make sense for their clients and their staff. So remember that coaching program is always available and always free, and we can build a plan that works specifically for that facility and is going to help them be comfortable expanding those services. Question, are new DV programs eligible for this grant? I would love to hear a little bit more, Chantel, if you are open to sharing, if you want to come off mute, our new DV program. So this would be a domestic violence program that maybe has been established within the last couple of years. Is that what you're referring to?
No, so maybe if there's a new DV program that is trying to come out into the community, how would they go about that? Would they be eligible as well?
Got it. Now, is this a shelter, a new shelter itself, or just a program in the community?
Shelter.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are a shelter, you're welcome to apply for this grant, and you have all of the required documentation.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another great question. We are in the process of getting our bid from a construction company to build an all-inclusive pet shelter. That's amazing.
Amazing.
I know. Is it possible for a pet clinic to double as a vet and an animal organization, or do they have to be separate entities?
Oh, that's a great question. So they are partnering with a vet clinic, and then they're wondering if that counts as their animal organization partner. Let's chat about that actually a little more. If you can reach out to me, I'd love to talk to you about that. Ideally, we would have you partnering with a nonprofit animal organization in your community. But if for some reason that is just not feasible, let's connect about that. So if you could email me, I don't remember the name of this person. Who asked this question, Danielle?
This is Safiana.
Yeah, if you could email me either the the grant at redrover.org email, or me specifically, I'll drop my email in the chat. Let's connect about this.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Question from Marcy. We have a few locations and have never taken pets. We are building a new transitional set of units and want to accept pets. We also have a domestic violence shelter that does not accept pets. Would both locations be on one application?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, so you wouldn't want to submit two separate applications for the same. If it's the same organization, I understand it's two completely separate locations. If you're trying to do this all at the same time, let's combine it into one application, and we will go from there. Of course, if it's separate times, you're welcome to separate them out. Different rounds.
Awesome. Question from Julie. Our shelter has had to stop accepting unvaccinated pets because we lack funds for the vaccines. This is stopping most pets from being able to enter our shelter. Would this improve our chances of funding under the 25 by 2025 criteria? So it sounds like, Julie, you had a pet program that maybe has sort of stopped or almost completely stopped because you're not able to accept pets without vaccines and don't have the funds to provide vaccines.
Understood. I'm sorry that you're going through that. That is really challenging. I definitely recommend applying because this would, in my mind, expand your capacity for the number of pets that you're able to house. So definitely feel free to submit an application.
Thanks, Rachel. All right, I think those are all the questions that we have right now in the chat. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to drop them there or just feel free to unmute and ask your question live. We'll wait another minute or two to give everybody an opportunity. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you so much again to Rachel for joining us. This has been another very informative session, and I hope many of the guests that joined us today for the webinar apply for safe housing grants. All right, and seeing several thank yous in the chat, but no additional questions. Oh, you and here they come. Okay. Thank you, James. Thank you, Sue. Let's see. Question from James. If we are already serving pets through a pet companion shelter on site, but are looking to renovate rooms to house survivors with their pets, does that count as expanding capacity?
Oh, we're getting into the nitty gritty. Love it. I'm not sure because, so essentially it's the same number of pets. However, they're moving from, say, let's say a kennel on site to in-room. You know what? Honestly, when in doubt, apply because we love seeing your applications and we love reading about your programs and seeing if we're able to assist. So I would say when in doubt, just apply.
Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah, James, we'd also just love to hear from you and hear more about what you're doing. Even just through Don't Forget the Pets. We love in-room housing. We love that housing model. So we're super excited that you're doing that. I don't know if you're planning to keep this on-site shelter in addition to that in-room housing. Maybe you're
I was just going to say that, Danielle. Yes.
Yeah, maybe you're planning to use it just for day kennels, or maybe you are planning to use it in case you have overflow, in which case that is expanding capacity if you're still keeping those kennels and planning to use them if you need them. So yeah, reach out to us. I think it's worth reaching out to us, and we'd love to hear what you have going on. Let's see. Sue, this doesn't look like a question, but I want to read it out and give you an opportunity to ask a question if you do, because this is a great note. We shelter and have fosters when an advocate reached out to us. We don't work with one shelter, but many groups. So Sue, are you asking if you as sort of an offsite fostering organization are eligible for funding? Yes, Sue said yes in the chat.
Okay, sorry, I don't have a chat open. Yes, you are absolutely welcome to apply, Sue. That's fantastic. And one of the great things about animal orgs is that they are able to help more than one specific shelter. So absolutely, you are able to apply if you're helping multiple shelters in your community.
And just a follow up to that, Rachel, would they need an MOU or a partnership agreement with all of the shelters that they are working with, or just one?
Great question, Danielle. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, you would only need technically an MOU with one of them, but definitely highlight in your application that you are working with more than one.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, once again, we've reached the end of the questions in the chat. Thank you again, Rachel, for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your contact info in case people have follow-up questions. I know, especially once you dig into the application, sometimes questions come up that we don't necessarily think of during these webinars, but please feel free to reach out to Rachel. Please feel free to reach out to myself. This came up several times in the chat. Yes, if you attended today's presentation, you will absolutely receive a follow-up email with links to both the slide deck that Rachel shared as well as the recording of today's webinar. So you'll have all of that information at your fingertips. You can share it with your friends, your colleagues, and go back to review it as you're moving through that application. One last question here from Ashley. Does the animal service program we have an MOU with have to be a nonprofit?
That's a good question. Technically, it does not have to be a nonprofit that you have an MOU with.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so very much for joining us today. Thank you so much to Rachel. We hope we hear from all of you very soon. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. Have a wonderful rest of your day and very wonderful last couple days of your work weeks.
Thank you all for attending. Thank you so much. And feel free to reach out. I popped the slide up with my information, so please definitely reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.